My husband hired a hitman to take me out and grab all my money. Days later, I faked my own death, and he had no clue what I was ready to do for revenge. Naomi Vance stepped out of her law firm downtown feeling accomplished. But deep down, she was uneasy. She had just nailed a big corporate case, which meant more prestige and a nice year end bonus. Yet the applause from her colleagues felt hollow. She wore a practiced smile, but her thoughts drifted to Julian, her husband who had become a stranger lately. That night, Naomi got home earlier than usual. Their elegant brownstone in Buckhead was quiet. The living room lights were on, but Julian wasn't in his usual spot. His sport coat hung over the sofa, and a half-finished glass of whiskey sat on the table. "Julian," she called out, sounding firm. From the kitchen, she heard the fridge door shut. Julian appeared, looking sharp as always, his shirt perfectly pressed and hair slicked back. But something about his smile made Naomi's stomach twist. "You're home early," Julian said casually, though his eyes seemed to scrutinize her. "I wrapped up the case ahead of schedule. Thought we could have dinner like old times," she replied, dropping her briefcase on a chair and slipping off her heels. Julian paused, as if weighing her suggestion, then nodded. "Sure, let me order something. I didn't have time to cook." As he pulled out his phone, Naomi watched him with mixed feelings, affection and something darker. The distant look he had lately unsettled her. The little lies she had caught and his constant absences were eating away at the trust that once held their marriage together. That night, while they ate takeout sushi in front of the TV, Naomi tried to lighten the mood. "How's the Onyx Lounge doing? Busy lately?" she asked, pretending to be uninterested. Julian, focused on his plate, replied without looking up. "It's fine. People always go out. There's always something to celebrate." "Glad to hear that. You seem so busy lately. I barely see you." Julian glanced up briefly, irritation flashing in his eyes before he masked it with a smile. "You know how it is. I'm working hard now so we can be comfortable later." Naomi nodded, but her mind wasn't convinced. Dinner ended in awkward silence. When Julian went to the bedroom, she stayed in the living room with her laptop, pretending to check emails. Curiosity got the better of her, and she glanced at Julian's phone, which he had carelessly left on the table. She knew the passcode. There was a time they shared everything without hesitation. Quickly, she opened the phone and scrolled through recent messages. One caught her eye, a conversation with someone saved as P. The message read, "All set for tomorrow. Remember, there can't be any mistakes." Naomi's heart raced. What were they talking about? The message was vague, but its tone made her feel exposed. Julian had never been secretive, or so she thought. She shut the phone just as she heard Julian's footsteps returning. He stopped in the doorway, looking at her with a neutral expression. "Still working?" he asked, his tone almost accusatory. "Yeah, just a couple of things to review," Naomi said, hastily closing her laptop. Julian nodded and went back to the bedroom without another word. She sat on the sofa, feeling the cracks in her marriage widen. It felt like someone was watching her, tracking her every move. Days later, the tension escalated when Naomi and Julian attended a dinner with close friends. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. Julian was charming and engaging, and everyone admired how well they complemented each other as a couple. But Naomi noticed how he avoided prolonged eye contact with her. During dinner, Chloe, her best friend, sensed something was off. She took a moment alone in the restroom to ask, "Naomi, is everything okay? You've seemed a bit distant tonight." Naomi hesitated, struggling to keep her voice steady. "Sure, just tired from work." Chloe looked at her intently, as if she could see right through Naomi's facade. "You know you can tell me anything. I've always been here for you." "I know, Chloe. Thank you," Naomi replied, forcing a smile before heading back to the table. When dinner wrapped up, Julian insisted on staying a few more minutes to chat with one of the guys while Naomi waited in the car. From the passenger seat, she saw Julian talking in a serious tone. The man handed him an envelope, which Julian quickly tucked into his jacket. On the way home, Naomi couldn't shake her anxiety and asked, "What were you and that guy talking about?" Julian kept his eyes on the road and replied coolly, "Club business. Nothing you'd be interested in." The coldness in his response felt like ice water splashed on her. For the first time in years, she felt utterly alone next to the man she had built her life with. That night, while Julian slept soundly, Naomi stayed awake in the living room, holding a glass of wine and gazing at the Atlanta skyline through the window. Her mind was a whirlwind. What was going on with Julian? What did those messages mean? She sensed danger, but without concrete evidence, her intuition didn't feel like enough to act. Suddenly, Julian's phone vibrated on the table, pulling her from her thoughts. This time, she didn't hesitate. She checked the screen and saw a message from P. Don't fail. Fear and confusion washed over her. She decided to hold off on confronting him, at least for now. She needed to gather more information before jumping to conclusions. But deep down, a dark truth was surfacing. Julian wasn't the man she thought she knew. As the city continued its nightly routine, Naomi resolved to protect herself, though she didn't yet know how. The man sleeping in the next room was no longer her husband. He was a mystery, and every step she took from then on would be shadowed by a danger she was just starting to grasp. The next morning, the alarm clock blared, but Naomi was already awake. She had spent the night in restless vigil, unable to shake off thoughts that invaded her mind. Every time she closed her eyes, P's words echoed disturbingly. Tomorrow is the day. Don't fail. She glanced at Julian, who was sleeping peacefully beside her. The calm on his face was a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside her. With every moment, her trust in him crumbled further. Naomi knew she had to act, but she also knew that one wrong move could cost her everything, even her life. At the office, Naomi tried to focus on her cases. Her assistant, Elena, noticed her distraction and casually asked, "Looks like you didn't sleep well. Everything okay at home?" "Just a bit of work stress. Nothing out of the ordinary," Naomi replied, forcing her tone to seem casual. Elena nodded and left, but Naomi felt a bitter sting. Was it that obvious something was wrong? Could Julian notice I was growing more distant? After hours of reviewing documents without really paying attention, Naomi made a decision. She hired a private investigator. Her reputation as an attorney had connected her with reliable people, and the man she chose, Darius Stone, was known for his discretion. When she called him, her voice trembled slightly. "I need your help. It's delicate, and I don't want anyone to know." "Of course, Miss Vance. Just tell me where and when." Darius replied. That evening, Naomi met Darius at a discreet coffee shop. Even with a scarf and dark sunglasses, she feared someone might recognize her. Darius was a man of few words, but he exuded confidence. "What do you need me to investigate?" he asked, pulling out a small notebook. Naomi hesitated. Saying it out loud made everything feel more real. "It's my husband. I think he's planning something against me. He's been acting strange, getting suspicious messages. I need to know who he's meeting and what he's doing when he's not home." Darius looked at her seriously, taking in every detail. "I'll do everything I can to get answers, but you have to be ready for what might come to light. Sometimes the truth is darker than we expect." A shiver ran down Naomi's spine. Days later, Darius delivered his first report. Naomi received it at the office, locking the door before opening the envelope. Inside were photos of Julian meeting a burly man with scars on his face. The images showed them animatedly talking in an alley behind Julian's nightclub. Something about the man's posture and the way he shook Julian's hand felt like a deal being sealed. Along with the photos, Darius included information about the man, Duke Miller. He's linked to an organized crime group known for extortion and disappearances. Naomi's heart sank as she read the name. Duke had a history of kidnapping charges, though he'd never been convicted. The connection between him and Julian was alarming. Naomi called Darius immediately, her voice trembling. "Why would my husband be meeting someone like him?" "I don't know yet, but there's more. I intercepted another conversation between them. They talked about a plan. They didn't mention specifics, but it's clear they're organizing something, and it doesn't sound legal." Naomi felt her blood run cold. For years, she dealt with criminals in her work, but never expected something like this to invade her home. The image of Julian as the trustworthy man she married was crumbling. That night, Naomi tried to confront Julian. She could no longer hide her discomfort. During dinner, she watched him closely, searching for any sign of guilt. Julian, sensing her gaze, raised an eyebrow and smiled. "What's wrong? You're quiet today." Naomi decided to test the waters. "I'm just worried you're working too much at the club. I don't want you getting into trouble with dangerous people." Julian put down his fork, staring at her for a moment. His expression hardened before softening again. "Why would you say that? Have you heard something?" he asked defensively. "No, nothing. I just want you to be okay. You know I'm always here for you." The smile Julian returned felt forced. The conversation quickly shifted, but Naomi sensed something in him had changed. Maybe he suspected she was on to him. The breaking point came the next day when Naomi got an urgent call from Darius. "We have a problem. Julian is suspecting something. Duke was seen talking to one of my men. I doubt it was a coincidence." Naomi felt the ground beneath her tremble. "What does that mean? Am I in danger? I'm not sure. But if Julian knows you're investigating him, he could speed up his plan. You need to be very careful, Naomi. I think involving the police might be wise." The advice echoed in her mind for hours. As days passed, the tension at home became unbearable. Julian was overly attentive, almost trying to distract her. He brought her flowers and suggested romantic dinners, but Naomi knew it was all a facade. Behind that kindness lurked darkness, something she had to expose before it was too late. That night, while reviewing Darius's documents again, she found a detail she had missed. Julian had made substantial wire transfers to an anonymous account weeks prior, coinciding with his meetings with Duke. Time felt like it was slipping away. Her life, her future, everything was at stake, and the man she shared her bed with could be her greatest threat. What began with cryptic messages and secret meetings was about to explode. Naomi made a crucial decision that morning. After hours of deliberation, she realized she couldn't go it alone anymore. The danger was real, and her survival instinct pushed her to cross a line she never thought she would. That morning, with a mix of fear and determination, she went to the Atlanta Police Department's Zone 5 precinct. The detective in charge, Marcus Jones, was known for his patience and expertise. When Naomi walked into his office, he greeted her with a mix of respect and curiosity. He knew who she was. "Miss Vance, how can I assist you?" Detective Jones gestured to a seat. Naomi took a deep breath. Every word would bring her closer to the truth and the danger. "I believe my husband is planning to kill me," she blurted, omitting embellishments. The silence that followed was heavy. Detective Jones stared at her, weighing her words and expression. "Do you have evidence?" he asked calmly but firmly. Naomi opened her bag and placed Darius's report, the photos, and the messages she found on Julian's phone on the desk. Detective Jones took his time reviewing the documents, nodding slightly as he read. "This is serious. If what you say is true, we need to act carefully. One wrong move could alert him. Are you willing to cooperate with us?" Detective Jones asked, looking Naomi in the eyes. "I'll do whatever it takes to stop him, but I need to make sure he can't escape if he finds out I know anything." "I don't know what he might do to me," Naomi replied, her voice trembling. The plan began to form that same afternoon. Detective Jones gathered his team to strategize. The priority was to gather more solid evidence that would hold up in court. Although the recordings and photographs were a good start, they needed explicit confirmation of Julian's intentions. They decided to infiltrate an informant into Julian and Duke's meetings. Naomi watched in silence as the agents discussed the details. Being at the center of a police operation felt surreal, but she knew she had no other choice. Her safety depended on them. "What happens if they discover the informant?" Naomi asked, unable to hide her fear. "It's a risk we're prepared for." "Our job is to ensure your protection," Detective Jones replied reassuringly. Although his words aimed to comfort her, Naomi couldn't ignore the growing unrest inside. Days later, the police managed to place the informant, Leo Walker, into Duke's inner circle. Leo, tough-looking and skilled at gaining the trust of dangerous men, began working as a supposed collaborator in Duke's operations. The first recordings he delivered revealed alarming details. In one conversation, Duke and Julian openly discussed their plan. "Everything is set. We just need her to trust the routine. She doesn't suspect a thing. She's too naive," Julian said coldly, a tone Naomi barely recognized. "Are you sure there won't be problems? I don't want anything to go wrong and splash back on us," Duke responded, sounding wary. "Trust me, everything will go as planned. By the time someone realizes, it'll be too late," Julian concluded. Naomi listened to the recording in Detective Jones's office, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. Each word felt like a dagger piercing her perception of Julian. She felt a mix of fear and anger, but above all, a deep sadness. The same man who had promised her eternal love was now discussing her life as if she were merely an obstacle. "Is this enough to move forward with the operation?" Detective Jones asked as he switched off the recorder. "But I need you to know it'll be dangerous. Are you sure you want to continue?" Naomi looked up, her eyes filled with determination. "There's no turning back. If we don't stop him now, he'll go through with his plan." The team decided that Naomi should actively participate in the operation. The idea was to record a conversation between her and Julian, where she would subtly push him to reveal more about his plan. Detective Jones knew it was risky, but it was also the best way to get a direct confession. Naomi was terrified. Facing Julian, knowing his intentions, was overwhelming. But her fear turned to anger when she remembered the recordings. He saw her as a disposable object, something to be removed. She wouldn't allow it. That night, when Julian got home, Naomi greeted him with a practiced smile. The police had installed a hidden microphone in her necklace, and every word would be transmitted in real time to Detective Jones's team. "I've missed you, Julian. I feel like we've been so distant lately," Naomi said while pouring 2 glasses of wine. Julian looked a bit taken aback by her demeanor, but settled onto the sofa, accepting the glass. "I've been busy with work. You know how it is," he replied casually. "Sometimes I wonder if it's all worth it. So much effort, so many hours apart. I just want us to be okay like before." Julian gazed at her with a mix of caution and something darker. For a moment, silence filled the room. "We're fine, Naomi. You don't have anything to worry about," he finally said, though his tone felt cold. Naomi's heart raced, but she forced herself to stay calm. "I just want you to know that I trust you. I always have. No matter what happens, I'm here for you." The words carried double meanings that didn't go unnoticed by Julian. He didn't respond immediately, his gaze intense, as if trying to decipher her true intentions. When they went up to the bedroom, Julian embraced her tighter than usual. Naomi felt a chill, but she didn't pull away. She knew every moment was a dangerous game, and any sign of weakness could jeopardize the whole plan. Deep down, she knew the worst was yet to come, but she was ready to face it. Her life was no longer just hers. It was part of a bigger struggle, a fight for survival and freedom. Hours later, Naomi and Detective Jones's plan would unfold. The night was dark and silent when Naomi met the police team in a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Flashlight beams barely illuminated the area. A technical team checked cameras, makeup, and recording equipment. Detective Jones, serious-faced, reviewed the operation details. "Here's the plan," he said, pointing to a blueprint on an improvised table. "We need everything to look like a real accident. The key is capturing Julian's reaction. If he reacts as we think he will, we'll have enough to arrest him." Naomi stood next to the table, nodding with a clenched jaw. Every word reminded her of the surreal situation she was in. She was no longer just a victim. She was a key player in a trap to expose the man she once loved. Hours later, the warehouse transformed into a carefully choreographed scene of chaos. Makeup artists worked meticulously to create realistic injuries on Naomi. Her face was covered with fake cuts and blood, and her hands trembled as she looked at her reflection in a cracked mirror. "Is this necessary?" the special effects technician asked, adjusting her makeup. His tone was professional, but his words didn't calm her. Naomi took a deep breath, looking away. She didn't want to see herself as a victim. She was fighting to stay strong. The plan was straightforward in theory, but each step was fraught with uncertainty. The operation would take place on a less traveled road near the city. Police would simulate a car accident with Naomi as the only victim. A wrecked car, skid marks on the road, and an immobile body all had to look convincing. The team worked with precision, setting up hidden cameras nearby. Naomi lay on the ground, covered by a sheet while technicians made final adjustments. Detective Jones knelt beside her, speaking softly. "You're sure about this, right? We can still back out. There's no other option. This has to work," Naomi replied, her voice slightly trembling. Detective Jones nodded and stood up. Naomi closed her eyes, trying to calm her breathing. She could hear distant cars and the team murmuring. Each second felt like an eternity. When everything was ready, Detective Jones made an anonymous call to the nightclub where Julian worked, delivering the message that Naomi had been in a critical accident. His reaction would be key. If he was truly involved in a plot against her, his response would reveal it. From a nearby van, the police team monitored the cameras. Naomi, still lying still, had a small hidden microphone that would capture any words spoken near her. Detective Jones watched the screens, frowning as he awaited Julian's arrival. When Julian finally pulled up, he slammed on the brakes in the middle of the road. He rushed out, but instead of running to the supposed accident, he stood a few feet away, observing. His expression was hard to read. No desperation or genuine concern, just a cold calm. "So, I didn't have to lift a finger after all," he muttered to himself, his voice picked up by the microphones. The team in the van held their breath. Julian slowly approached Naomi's body, his footsteps echoing. "I guess it's too late now," he said with a twisted smile. His words sliced through the air. Then he pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "P. Everything is done. It wasn't how we planned, but it turned out better. Now it's just a matter of time before things calm down and we can move forward." In the van, Detective Jones signaled the agents. It was enough. The audio and video recordings confirmed their suspicions. Julian showed no remorse. He seemed to be celebrating. The agents moved quickly, surrounding Julian before he could react. He tried to resist but was easily restrained. Naomi, still on the ground, slowly opened her eyes and sat up with help from an officer. Her body trembled, not from the cold, but from the intensity of the moment. Julian stared at her in disbelief as he was handcuffed. This is a trap. You can't do this to me," he shouted, his voice full of rage. Naomi approached slowly, keeping her gaze steady. Tears welled in her eyes, but there was a strength Julian had never seen before. "You did this to yourself, Julian. I just made sure justice was served." Julian was taken away by the police. Naomi stood by the fake accident scene. Detective Jones walked over and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing. It won't be easy, but you're safe now." Naomi nodded, unsure if those words rang true. She had won a battle, but the cost felt heavy. She looked at the wrecked car and the cameras, wondering if she could ever reclaim her lost life. As the operation concluded, an officer approached with a phone. "Naomi, there's something you should hear." It was a voicemail from Duke, his tone mocking, almost as if he knew they were recording. "You think it's over, but this is just the beginning. Julian wasn't alone, and neither will you be." The message left everyone silent. Detective Jones frowned at Naomi. "This isn't over. We need to be ready for what's coming." Naomi gazed into the distance, realizing her struggle was only beginning. The shadows surrounding Julian ran deeper than she'd imagined, and her life would never be the same. Hours later, the tension in the interrogation room was thick. Julian sat across from the table, handcuffed and staring at the floor. His expression flickered between contained rage and cold indifference. Behind the two-way mirror, Naomi watched alongside Detective Jones. Although she knew she was safe, Julian's presence nearby filled her with visceral fear. "We need him to talk, but it won't be easy," Detective Jones murmured, crossing his arms as he studied Julian. "He's smart and knows anything he says can be used against him. He'll play the innocent husband. But we know what he is," Naomi replied firmly, hiding her inner turmoil. Detective Jones nodded before entering the room, leaving Naomi behind the glass. She knew this moment would be decisive, but it didn't ease her nerves. Inside, Detective Jones placed a recorder on the table and sat across from Julian. "So, Julian, care to explain why you were celebrating your wife's death instead of worrying about her?" Julian slowly looked up, offering a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about. I was told she'd had an accident, and when I arrived, it was all staged. You should be questioning her, not me. We have recordings, Julian. Messages, bank transfers, everything points to you planning to eliminate Naomi. And you weren't alone. We want the names of your accomplices." Julian leaned forward, his voice low and venomous. "Circumstantial evidence. Nothing a good lawyer can't dismantle. And as for my accomplices, I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you should look among the people Naomi trusts. Maybe she's not as innocent as she pretends to be." Detective Jones stayed calm, but behind the glass, Naomi felt her heart race. Julian's manipulation was calculated, and his ability to twist the narrative was terrifying. For a moment, she remembered why she had fallen for him: his charisma, confidence. Now those same traits made him dangerous. Later, in a separate room, Naomi sat with Detective Jones and the investigation team. On the table lay a detailed report with Julian's recordings and financial history. Each page reminded her of the man who had betrayed her profoundly. Duke is our priority now. We know he was involved in the plan, but that voicemail suggests there are more players. This could be bigger than we think, Detective Jones said, pointing to the notes. What does that mean for me? Isn't catching Julian enough? Naomi asked, fatigue weighing on her voice. Julian's just one piece. If Duke has more allies, they might target you. We need to ensure your safety while we keep investigating. Naomi nodded, though the idea of living under constant surveillance felt suffocating. She had envisioned the moment Julian would be arrested, thinking it would signal the end of her nightmare. But now, she realized it was just the beginning. That night, in the solitude of a safe room provided by the police, Naomi tried to process everything. The bare walls contrasted sharply with the home she had shared with Julian. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she held her phone, deciding to call Chloe. She needed a human connection, someone not involved in the police operation or the horrors surrounding her. Chloe, it's me, she said, her voice slightly trembling. Naomi, I've been so worried. I haven't heard from you since everything broke in the news. Are you okay? I don't know. It all feels so unreal. Julian is in custody, but there's still so much I don't understand. Everything I thought I knew about my life, about him, has collapsed. Chloe paused before responding, her tone filled with concern. You're stronger than you think, Naomi. You've survived all of this, and you're not alone. Don't let him or anyone make you feel otherwise. Chloe's words offered momentary comfort, but the sense of threat lingered. After hanging up, Naomi lay down on the bed, closing her eyes tightly. Though surrounded by secure walls, she felt more vulnerable than ever. The next day brought an unexpected turn. Detective Jones called Naomi to the precinct to show her a new recording. Leo, the informant who had infiltrated Duke's circle, had captured a crucial conversation. They're looking to finish what Julian couldn't do. They want to silence her forever before she can testify, Detective Jones said, his tone graver than usual. Why? They already have Julian. What more do they want? Naomi asked, disbelief creeping into her voice. This isn't just about you. There seem to be other illicit businesses at stake, and your testimony could expose them. To them, you're a problem that needs to disappear. Detective Jones's words hit Naomi like a blast of cold air. She wasn't just facing Julian. She was up against a network willing to do anything to protect their interests. Fear and anger surged within her, but instead of paralyzing her, they ignited a fierce determination to survive and seek justice. We'll do everything necessary to protect you, but this could get even more dangerous before it ends, Detective Jones said, looking directly at her. I don't care what it costs. I won't let them silence me. They played with me, but now I'll play with them, Naomi replied, her intensity surprising even Detective Jones. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. Rain pounded against the precinct windows. Inside, tension filled the air as Naomi sat in a conference room surrounded by officers reviewing the next operation phase. Leo's message had changed everything. It wasn't just about prosecuting Julian anymore. It was about dismantling the entire network behind him. Detective Jones stood up, pacing the room. His gaze landed on Naomi, who stared back, searching for assurance that all this would end soon. Naomi, here's the plan, Detective Jones said gravely. Leo has given us key information about a meeting between Duke and his allies. It'll be at a warehouse outside the city. We believe they're planning how to eliminate you and ensure Julian doesn't talk. Naomi swallowed hard. Each mention of eliminate broke something inside her, but she couldn't show weakness. Not when she was close to confronting those who had tried to destroy her. What do you need me to do? She asked, her voice steady despite the anxiety consuming her. Detective Jones shook his head. I don't want you anywhere near that meeting. It's too dangerous. This isn't just your problem. It's mine too. I won't sit back while others risk their lives for something I started. Naomi insisted, standing up from her chair. The room fell silent. Detective Jones looked at her with a mix of admiration and concern. He knew arguing with her was futile. Fine, but this is non-negotiable. You'll be under our protection. And if anything goes wrong, your safety is our priority. That night, the team prepared for the operation. In a disguised vehicle, Naomi and Detective Jones waited at a safe distance from the warehouse. From their position, they could see flickering lights and figures entering and leaving the building. Leo was already inside, equipped with a hidden microphone, transmitting everything in real time. "They're here. Duke just arrived with 2 other men," Leo reported over the radio, his voice calm but laced with risk. From the vehicle, Naomi listened intently. Duke's tone was as cold as she had imagined. "We can't risk it. She's already made too much noise. If she testifies, she'll sink us all. We need to finish this fast." One of the men responded, distrust evident in his voice. "What if the police know too much? It might not be as easy as you think." "That's why we have a plan," Duke retorted. "The men are ready. It's just a matter of waiting for the right moment." Naomi felt the air grow heavy. They were discussing her like an object, an obstacle to remove. Rage boiled inside her, but she had to stay focused. Detective Jones signaled for the team to move. Several police vehicles surrounded the warehouse, blocking all exits. Inside, Leo maintained his cover, feigning surprise when the agents burst in with weapons drawn. "Freeze! Police! Everyone on the ground!" one officer shouted, and the tension exploded. Duke and his men fought back. Gunfire erupted, echoing throughout the building. From the vehicle, Naomi listened, her heart racing. Detective Jones monitored the operation with a radio in hand. "We have 2 detainees. Duke is resisting but won't get far," one agent reported. The confrontation lasted several minutes until the police subdued Duke and the others. After it was over, silence filled the space, broken only by the sounds of handcuffs clicking and officers' commands. Duke was taken to the precinct, placed in a separate cell from Julian. Naomi, still processing the operation's intensity, decided to see him. Detective Jones tried to dissuade her, but she insisted. She needed to confront him, to face the monster conspiring against her life. When Naomi entered the interrogation room, Duke looked at her with a mocking smile. There was no remorse in his expression, just contempt. "The little princess thinks she's strong now," Duke said sarcastically. "You think catching Julian and me means it's over? You have no idea what you've started." "I know exactly what I've started, and I know you and your allies will pay for the damage you've caused," Naomi replied, surprising even Detective Jones, who was watching from outside. "Allies?" Duke sneered. "You think this is just about me and Julian? There are bigger players involved. People who wouldn't hesitate to destroy you if you keep poking your nose where it doesn't belong." Naomi stared at him, letting his words sink in. She wouldn't let Duke intimidate her. "Then they will fall too, because I'm not stopping until this ends," she said before leaving the room. That night, as Naomi returned to her safe room, the sense of danger lingered. She knew she had won a significant battle, but Duke's words echoed in her mind. This wasn't over. More people were involved, more secrets to uncover. Though the path ahead was terrifying, she was determined to confront it. Looking out the window at the city lights, she felt more alone than ever, but also more resolute. This fight wasn't just for her. It was for everyone silenced by those who hadn't had the chance to fight. She wouldn't stop until the truth came to light. The light from the monitors illuminated the small room where the investigation team reviewed the latest recordings obtained after Duke's capture. The audios revealed names, addresses, and fragments of conversations that indicated a larger scheme than anyone had anticipated. Every word confirmed that the network of corruption and organized crime extended beyond Julian and Duke. There was something deeper, a structure operating in the shadows. Naomi sat next to Detective Jones, feeling the weight of each revelation. At times, rage and fear suffocated her, but she knew backing down wasn't an option. "We have new names. Some are linked to major corporations and government contracts. This isn't just a case of attempted homicide," Naomi said. "This could be the beginning of something much bigger," Detective Jones replied, pointing at the screen. "What do we do now?" Naomi asked urgently. "First, we protect you. You're a target, not just because you were the initial victim, but now they know you have enough information to hurt them. Naomi nodded, though the feeling of constant danger was no longer new to her. She looked at the screen where one man stood out, Clayton Albright, her stepfather. The sight of his neat face and elegant demeanor hit her like lightning. Albright? He can't be involved, she murmured, more to herself than to Detective Jones. You know him? Detective Jones asked, noticing her reaction. Naomi nodded slowly. He's my stepfather. He was married to my mother for years. He was always reserved and controlling, but I never imagined he was capable of this. The silence that followed was tense. Detective Jones looked at her seriously. This complicates things. If Albright is involved, it means this is personal. We need to act quickly before he covers his tracks. The urgency of the situation led the team to intercept Albright's communications. What they heard confirmed their worst fears. In one captured call, Albright spoke with someone whose voice Naomi recognized immediately, her mother, Adrienne. Everything's getting complicated. Naomi is too involved. We can't let this come to light, or it'll sink us, Albright said authoritatively. I warned you, Clayton. I told you we should have acted sooner, but you hesitated, and now everything's out of control, her mother replied coldly. Naomi felt the ground beneath her begin to crumble. Her own mother, the woman who should have protected her, was complicit with Albright in a plan to destroy her. It can't be, she whispered, trembling as she listened. We can still salvage this, Albright continued. If we manage to make her disappear before she testifies, everything will calm down. Julian is out of the game. Now she's the only obstacle. Naomi looked away from the screen, unable to listen further. Detective Jones placed a hand on her shoulder. I know this is a lot, but we need you to stay strong. What they just said is enough to incriminate them both. We will act, but it'll be risky. My mother, Naomi said, her voice barely a whisper. All this time, she knew she was with them. We're going to stop them. This isn't just about them. This is for everything you've been through. We won't let this go unpunished. That night, the team organized a raid on Albright's mansion, believing he still had incriminating documents. The operation was charged with tension, not just because of the case's magnitude, but its personal implications for Naomi. In a nearby van, she observed through real-time cameras. When agents broke in, they found Albright and her mother in a heated discussion, documents strewn across a table evidencing contracts, transfers, and a network of illegal activities. This is a mistake. You have nothing against me, Albright shouted as the agents cuffed him. And what are you going to do with her? Arrest a mother for protecting her daughter? Her mother said with a bitter smile, gesturing toward the police. From the van, Naomi watched the heartbreaking scene unfold. Detective Jones approached and asked if she wanted to go in, but she shook her head. I can't see her now. I can't face her. Hours later, at the precinct, Albright and her mother were placed in separate cells. Naomi, though emotionally drained, decided to confront her mother. She walked slowly toward the interrogation room, where her mother sat, handcuffed and weary. Why? Naomi asked, her voice breaking. Her mother looked up, sadness mixed with coldness in her eyes. I did what I had to do. Clayton promised me safety for us both. You wanted to destroy me, Naomi responded, filled with rage. You don't understand. You can't understand. Everything I did was for us. But you became a problem, Naomi. There was no other option. Tears streamed down Naomi's face, but she couldn't stop them. She looked at her mother one last time before leaving the room, leaving behind a silence that felt eternal. That night, as the team reviewed the seized documents, Detective Jones approached Naomi with a cup of coffee. You took a significant step today. It won't be easy, but we're closer to ending this. Naomi nodded, though his comforting words didn't ease her pain. She had lost her mother, not just physically, but emotionally. The enemy hadn't just been in the shadows, it had been in her own home. But she knew she couldn't stop. Not now. The fight was far from over, and she wouldn't allow herself to fall. Months later, the day of the trial arrived. The courtroom was packed, tension palpable as whispers filled the air. Naomi sat beside the prosecutors, ready to face Julian, Duke, Albright, and most painfully, her own mother. The evidence collected by the police, from recordings to confiscated documents, had turned the case into a national spectacle. Hands clasped, Naomi watched as the judge took his seat. Facing her were the defendants, each with a different expression. Julian avoided her gaze. Duke wore a mocking smile, and Albright maintained a facade of calm. Her mother, Adrienne, looked like a ghost of her former self, dull eyes and head bowed. The lead prosecutor opened the case forcefully, summarizing the crimes: conspiracy to commit murder, corruption, money laundering, and manipulation of contracts. Each word struck Naomi's heart, but she stood firm. This was her moment to regain control of her life. During the trial, recordings of Julian and Duke played for the court. Their voices, meticulously planning her demise, echoed in the room. Julian kept his eyes downcast, while Duke seemed to relish the attention. Then it was Albright's turn. The prosecutor presented evidence linking him to the corruption network. The bank transfers and illegal contracts spoke volumes. When it was her mother's time to speak, Naomi felt the air grow heavier. The prosecutor presented the incriminating phone conversations, revealing her mother's active collaboration with Albright. Her mother didn't deny anything. When the judge offered her a chance to speak, she looked at Naomi, but her words lacked absolution. "I made mistakes, but they were out of desperation. I never wanted this to end this way. There's no justification for what I did, but I hope one day you can understand," she said. Naomi felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Her mother's words, though laced with regret, couldn't erase the pain she had caused. After weeks of hearings, the sentencing day arrived. The judge, in a solemn tone, began reading the convictions. Julian Vance, for conspiracy to commit murder and money laundering, is hereby sentenced to 20 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Julian barely reacted, his face hardened by defeat. Francisco Duke Miller, for conspiracy and participation in organized criminal activities, is hereby sentenced to 25 years in federal prison, with parole reviewable after 15 years. Duke shrugged, as if the sentence held no weight. Clayton Albright, for corruption, conspiracy to commit murder, and manipulation of government contracts, is hereby sentenced to 30 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Albright maintained composure, but tension gripped his jaw. The judge paused before reading the last sentence. Adrienne Albright, for conspiracy to commit murder and cover-up, is hereby sentenced to 10 years in federal prison with the possibility of parole after serving half the sentence. Naomi felt a mix of relief and sorrow. She knew her mother would no longer be part of her life, but she also knew she had done the right thing by testifying against her. When it was all over, Naomi left the courthouse surrounded by reporters and cameras. Questions flooded in from all directions, but she remained silent, walking toward the waiting car with Detective Jones, who had supported her throughout. "How do you feel?" Detective Jones asked as they got into the vehicle. "Relieved, I guess, but also exhausted." "This isn't just about justice. It's a loss of everything I thought I had," Naomi replied, staring out the window. "What you've done is brave, not just for you, but for everyone who has suffered something similar. This network will never harm anyone again." Naomi nodded. Detective Jones's words rang true, but the emptiness she felt was hard to fill. Months later, Naomi began rebuilding her life. She left her job as a patent lawyer and started a foundation to help victims of conspiracies and abuse. Her experience transformed her into a strong, resilient voice, determined to make a difference. One day, while organizing a charity event, she received a letter from prison. It was from her mother. Naomi held it for several minutes before opening it. The content was brief, but filled with emotion. "Naomi, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but I want you to know I'm remorseful. I don't expect your forgiveness. I just want you to live a full life, something I never knew how to do. I love you, even if I don't deserve it, Mom." Naomi closed the letter and put it away in a drawer. She didn't know if she was ready to forgive her, but she realized that hatred wouldn't lead her anywhere. Inside, something began to heal. That night, as she gazed at the city lights from her apartment window, Naomi felt a peace she hadn't experienced in months. She knew the struggle was over. Her life would never be the same, but she was ready to build something new, something better. And in that moment, for the first time, she felt confident she would succeed. Did you enjoy the story? Which city are you tuning in from? Let's chat in the comments. If you liked it, consider sending a super thanks to support me in bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your kindness. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Check out the two new life stories on the screen that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.